Okay, welcome everybody. I hope that this is working and you can all see us. So this is the second of our Urban Cultures lunchtime seminar series of 21-22. And we're delighted to have all the way from Virginia, our colleague Maya Jaber. And I'll hand over in a moment to Sandra to introduce, but Maya's got about a 20-minute presentation that we'll start with, and then we'll carry on and have some Q&A. So please feel free to post your questions into the chat and we will manage the questions like that. Also a small plug, but the third in the seminar series will be in 2 weeks' time, and that's going to be me, Professor Rachel Sara, and I'm going to be talking about learning for global health and the Global Health Cities Network. So that's going to be me in a couple of times. So watch out for the calls for that, both here on the Urban Cultures Twitter space. So can I hand over to you, Sandra, just to introduce Maya?
Thanks, Rachel. Hello, everyone. And I'm Sandra Costa, and I'm a lecturer and researcher at Birmingham City University, and I'll be moderating the session with Rachel as well. So I am extremely delighted to welcome and introduce our special guest speaker, Maya Jaber, who's joining us from the West, as Rachel said. And Maya has recently concluded her PhD here with us at Birmingham School of Architecture and Design, and just waiting for final ratification. So within a few weeks, we'll be able to call her Dr. Maya. So that will be really great. And I'm sure everyone in the school and beyond, obviously, will join me in congratulating you on this great achievement. So I had just a bit of background. I had the pleasure to join the supervisory team, Maya supervisory team with Dr. Lawrence Good, and be part of our journey towards the final stages of your PhD. So I was really thrilled to be part of that. So Maya, a bit about you, is a social entrepreneur and innovator with 20 years of business acumen. Maya has spent the past decade finding innovative ways to support market transformation to a more sustainable future. She's a creative thinker, analyst, researcher, and tactician that sees the micro and macro to design and develop strategies that embed both qualitative and quantitative data for optimized solutions that are human-centric. Our research focuses on sustainability management challenges and on creating a holistic strategy framework for change of mindsets and focus on aiding in organizational behavior change, so which is the subject she's going to address in this talk today. And the title of her talk is Design, Research and Culture Change in the Era of Transformation. Thank you very much, Maya, for joining us today. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Sandra, for your guidance through my last course. And Dr. Lawrence Green, who was with BCU for a long time, was just my rock, I guess, through the whole process. So it's been wonderful to be part of this journey. It's been a long road, but a very worthwhile journey. I'm very happy to be here at the end of it, and to be like one of the doctors in the future that can be using that title together. It's a great honor to have that title now through what we've gone through, all of us. Today I'll give a brief overview of my work, research and insight. I come from the design and build industry and have moved into business utilizing those foundations and expertise. Start my slides. So if you believe in human impact on climate change or not, there is no denying the climate risks that we as a society face. There is no denying that we need to do something about it for our future and the future generations, as ecosystems and communities in the United States and around the world are being impacted today. from major droughts, forest fires, flooding, storms, and rising sea levels. More of these events are happening more frequently and in a more aggressive way. Just from this summer, record heat triggered wildfires across the globe. This impact is being felt here in the Western United States at a much more intense level, where the skies covering a few states turned orange from smoke, which caused major air quality issues for a large portion of the country. Rains and storms are coming with an intensity that causes major flooding, can be seen globally. Examples were seen this summer in Germany, the US, and France. In the Caribbean, Haiti was again hit with a major earthquake, followed directly by a major storm that devastated that country. And not to mention COVID-19's effect that we are still tackling every day. Climate change effects are felt around the world, understanding that not only when these events happen in our backyard, we are affected, but we are connected, and what is happening in China, India, South America, or other parts of the world will affect all of us in the Western world as well. We can also see the effects of COVID on businesses and supply chain. Goods produced in factories and areas affected by climate change will disrupt the business operations of those that rely on parts for their products, as we are a global economy. This has also affected food production across the globe and here in the United States from droughts, fires, and global warming. For example, fruit trees harvests were significantly reduced because of late frost, heavy rains, and storms from Germany to here in Virginia that affects me locally. I am sure all of us have similar stories we can share on this subject. One of the most significant challenges governments and societies face today is mass migration, which will happen more frequently as climate change effects are presented. Here is an estimated map we can see of the Bahamas in 2050. Most of the landmass will be underwater. Here in the United States, just this year, thousands of Haitians are migrating because of climate change effects on their home and have found their way to the southern border of the United States. Again, this will affect every society, government, and industry. As designers, researchers, innovators, we need to work together to find the gaps and develop innovations that will manage these pressing issues. In today's climate environment, we all need to work together to tackle this. For example, solutions for the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or having a net positive mindset in which an organization puts back into society, the environment, and the global economy as it takes it out. For this reason, traditional way of thinking has to change. From the traditional thinking of a capitalist society, we need to change it to more of from purpose to a more purposeful society. This is a transition that has already started here in the United States. An example of this is on August 19, 2019, the group called Business Roundtable released a statement on the purpose of a corporation that was signed by over 200 CEOs of Fortune 100 and 500 corporations and represents a bold new step in finding more just and equitable model. We can see the mindset of the shift of what needs to happen from our capitalist society to a more purposeful one is we need to change the mindset from profit to purpose. We need to change the leadership style from controlling to empowerment. We need to change processes from planning to experimentation. And we need to change communication strategies from privacy to transparency. What is needed to achieve this transformation are leaders and teams that think like researchers. Researchers are able to visualize the abstract from actual observations, mentally connect the dots to identify hidden concepts and patterns, synthesize patterns into generalizable laws and theories, and be able to move back and forth from an experimental plane to a theoretical one. We will also need to have individuals that think like designers and utilize design thinking methodologies in practice. Designers believe that no matter how hard the problem is, we will always come up with a better solution. Design thinking methodologies is human-centric. It brings empathy and collaboration for problem solutions, and brings emotional meanings to things as well as functional performance, while having a constant learning cycle for testing and refinement. Design thinking brings together both analytical and intuitive thinking. Analytical thinking is a business thinking that is rational and structured, while intuitive thinking is brings together emotional and intuitive. Design thinking is the ability to switch between a rational and structured approach to a more emotional and intuitive approach. And it gives the ability to zoom in and out, taking the problem apart to reassemble in a different way. Bringing together these two elements in design science research would be a quest for understanding and improving human performance. Design science helps to develop knowledge that professionals of the discipline in question can use to design solutions for their field problems. Design science focuses on the process of making choices on what is possible and valuable for the creation of a possible future rather than on what is currently existing. As we are trying to define the gaps and issues faced, there will need to be the development of collaboration and the web of connections for each organization. The process needs to be a top-down and bottom-up engagement on an internal level and with the additions of external stakeholders. We cannot do this alone. It is not an individualized solution. It has to be a collaborative one. Solutions need to be developed with the input of all stakeholders. This will need to be analyzed for each group, and the restrictions and challenges in their domain of work need to be addressed. Ownership also needs to be given to each stakeholder group. Creating such environments will open doors to innovation. And now more than ever, in today's ever-changing world, governments, organizations, and individuals need to be able to adapt, see beyond their field of vision, and work together to bring solutions for our future health and survival. Learning that we are connected on both the macro and the micro levels is essential to transformation. For example, in organizations, all departments need to work together for the organization to flourish. All stakeholders in the organization, from the CEO to the cleaning staff, are essential, and their work matters to the health of the organization. Having all stakeholders understand this concept on a local and global level will help build empathy, trust, and a collaborative community that will open doors to innovation needed today. My research is built on these foundations of thought. My framework, Integral Design Thinking, IDT, is a holistic strategy framework that gives practitioners and researchers a foundation for critical thinking process upon entering an organization or initiating a change management process or organizational transformation process. It is broken down into 6 core imperatives. Branding, communication, and community are more comprehensive of the 6 core imperatives. For example, when considering implementing sustainability initiatives, which include environmental, social, and governance, management will require the buy-in of leadership, the organization's voice attached to it, and champions moving the initiatives from all levels of the organization. Speaking the same language and empathy, core imperatives, are as crucial as the first three I discussed and need to be applied to all three as part of the holistic strategy. Speaking the same language is the understanding that there are different layers that change agents need to understand, be able to create the right stories and the right processes, and the suitable communication styles for each stakeholder at different levels. Empathetical thinking is the understanding we all work together at all levels of with the stakeholders. The knowledge of stress on these individuals, sectors, or sections, and the ability to address them as strategies and solutions are being designed and implemented. Design thinking needs to be incorporated into all stakeholders' understanding and actions. And holistic design thinking methodology developed through my research brings together systems and design thinking methodologies in one, and would need to be implemented upon initiation of any transformation or initiative. To further aid sustainability practitioners in utilizing IDT framework, the IDT Holistic Strategy Framework Toolbox was developed from my research. This supporting information is designed to help the sustainability and initiative development teams thinking process. The toolbox consists of all core imperatives, supporting information, a case study example, and creative thinking tools. This model can also be applied and utilized by other change management practitioners for change implementation, and in the future, it can serve as part of the foundations for developing other tools. Here you can see core imperative 1, which is design thinking. All of these would have the intent of that imperative. A reminder that all imperatives work together and are connected, and things to consider and develop as you are trying to implement this specific core imperative. Also within the IDT framework, the utilization of design science research methodology was also incorporated into the thought process. My thesis methodology framework was design science. I had broken it down into 3 phases, and the same phases were applied to my case studies. Same methodology was also applied. So those 3 phases were also taken into the conceptual thought process for all practitioners who would utilize this framework. And it is broken down into 3 steps to first identify the problem, design solutions, and evaluate. And my creative thinking tools were made to follow that. The 4 creative thinking tools were developed from influence of relevant scholars. These were also developed to assist individuals interested in learning from and utilizing this framework, again, through the 3 steps process discussed. Each graphic in the steps is derived from experience building, from projects explored in the case studies, and from interactions with other leaders in the field. The graphics have also been created in a way that reflects core academic contributions. For example, this current graphic, Building Purpose, is part of step 1, adapted from Schirmer's Theory U. And there are 2 graphics for step 1 and 1 graphic for each of the additional steps. The tools aid in refining the focus and thinking of the change agents. Overall, the IDT Holistic Strategy Framework Toolbox was created to give others foundations and support to move in the overall challenging process towards organizational culture change for environmental, social, and governance adoption. We are all united in this challenge. Understanding, research, and design thinking is an imperative for the changing world around us. For example, combating climate change, supply chain issues, mass migration, and COVID We are all in this together, and it is a global issue. As organizations around the world are transforming, we need to incorporate more responsibility, as well as making a diverse, equitable, inclusive, and empathetic work environment that then transitions into our communities. My research is set up as a tool to aid organizations and individuals in the critical thinking process for transforming their organization and moving forward into this new world we are approaching. Thank you for your time. You can check out my website, mayajaber.com, and for any further communication or collaboration, you could also send me an email at mayajaber.com. I look forward to our conversation.
Thanks very much, Maya.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maya. That was really fascinating. As I said at the start, can I invite people just to post their questions in the chat, and Sandra or I will manage the discussion. But just to start with, I don't know, perhaps you want to stop sharing screen so we can just see you and whoever's speaking. But just to start with, Maya, what's next for you? What do you see what you want to do with this research, or what you want to do with your research in general? What's next on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to stop sharing the screen.
We've done it, I think. We've done it.
Okay. I'm hoping to see with my research start maybe putting a book together, and also seeing how many more papers I can put together as well, journal papers, and so within that aspect of it on the research side, and hoping to start bringing that information more into practice and seeing how I could bring that more to other practitioners.
Yeah, so linked with that, I suppose I was wondering, how do you get this framework out there? How do you get practices to start taking it up and for it to become an established approach? Have you got any ideas for how you're going to?
Yeah, I mean, I think with it's a small industry, especially here in the US. Sustainability is I mean, the people that I know within my circle, like, it's just very tight. It's very small. So it's trying to get it out to within just speaking about it at green building conferences and start to see that mindset and talk to people more about it within that network. So that's where I hope to start bringing, this thought process out. And I don't know, through consultancies and stuff, to do it. In all honesty, I haven't fully thought that through yet. I know I'd like to put a book together with for practitioners, not on an academic side, but on for a practitioner side of the thought process of it, with the tools and the creative thinking tools out there, just to have them start seeing that. And so I'm also, I mean, the fact of it, it's about culture change and behavior change. If you can do that, and I think in the UK, you guys have more of that mentality, and it's already, especially in Birmingham, already embedded that behavior change is important, that you can move forward. So maybe even bringing that concept to the US of innovation, and that needs to be built into an organization more. So bringing that mentality, and I think design thinking already, I can see it more in conversations here in the US, the importance of design thinking on a business level, not just from the design aspect, but bringing it into all fields within the business environment. I think needs to be invested more into that aspect of it and talked about. And I see it more, you see that on job applications where design thinking is now, even the Fortune 5 hundreds are see the benefits of us as designers, and our understanding of process and research are invaluable. And I think now, I think bringing that understanding to the general population, I think it would be is what I hope to see what I can move forward.
Can I jump in with a question, Rachel? Thanks, Maya, for your presentation. Part of your research and data collection, I know, was developed within organizations you worked for. And so your approach was partly within this kind of action research framework where you collect data within your own practice. I wonder about how well a sustainability management was received by the different parts or the different stakeholders in those kind of environments you worked for, and kind of what sort of reaction or what was the receptivity did you get from those you're working with and running these activities, obviously, in terms of your case studies and so on. So kind of, how did you feel the engagement was? Did you feel they wanted this culture and behavior change, or did you feel there was a certain resistance to it? And maybe a second question to follow up, how do you make them, people, you know, talking who might not be designers, to think as designers, you know, like, you know, design thinking?
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's challenges in any change management process. And I think that's why I think most sustainability management, I think I was lucky because I was doing my research. So I understood action research, and I was able to utilize my action research methodology within practice. So, and that's why I think being a researcher and understanding those concepts is so important for definitely sustainability managers, but I think any change management agent of trying to implement anything in it. Like overall, that's where, you know, my framework was built. It's, you need to, when you are changing for sustainability, you need to understand people. You need to make sure when, you know, people want to do it, they want to, I mean, people are very passionate. I think everybody understands sustainability nowadays and wants to push it forward, but my workload is too hard. I already have so much to do. You want me to add this to my plate? And that's why I think holistic strategies, and when you're actually doing all of that, you need to understand part of like speaking the same language, I think, is, and building strategies from that understanding is so important. Because when you are dealing with people who are overloaded with work, how are you going to have them do this, but be able to streamline, be able to help them? So you need to be able to help them in a way that does not make it as like an extra stress. They might be an extra workload, but within the design of that solution, you need to make sure maybe it's simplified. How is the process? Like, that's why you need to look at the communication. You need to look at operations. You need to look at all of it and how it affects all the stakeholders internally when you're designing these things. Because if you just say, I need you simple waste management solutions of just putting 2 bins next to somebody, then it doesn't work well. And then you get like simple things like that. Then you get, well, the cleaning person is not doing their job. Why should I? Or, you know, so that's, again, communication needs to come in where everybody is on the same page, and really designing proper solutions that is going to mitigate all of these questions and understanding these questions. That's where designers, when you're looking at these things, we understand those questions. We kind of foresee those things, and we see those connections as, and that's where design thinking comes in. I think everybody can be taught design thinking process. One of my case studies, first thing I did within my lunch and learns, I started creating lunch and learns so I can educate the whole office on what it means, just what sustainability is to the organization. But my first lunch and learn was what design thinking is. I targeted main people Again, you need to understand who the influencers are within the organization. And I bought them a book of what design thinking is, and I gave that to them after that presentation. And that was a catalyst for me to be able to move forward. And having them understand the benefit of it and working with them through that innovative process. And within that case study, I started like that. And again, yes, you're working on sustainability, but you need to understand that you need to fix the whole organization. And that's where culture change and behavior change holistically has to happen. When you're trying to do simple things, you can't just say, I need to put in this new database for the organization, but you don't actually make sure everybody understands what this database is, how it works for each one person. So implementation needs to be designed correctly. And as designers, we see those connections. We see how those work. And so when you start talking to people and educating them on that thinking process, and again, as researchers, action research, it's not about you doing the work. It's about you influencing people, stepping back and being able to observe how it's happening and being able to see where the faults are that you need to fix, be it a person that may not be understanding, that might need some more education-based aspect, or maybe you need to understand more of what that issue that person is having that is clogging the overall machine of those cogs working, you know, like what is that you need to move out of the way for those cogs to work together. So again, I think that's the importance of making sure, and as designers, we're always learning, right? Like design thinking, like we're like, okay, well, oh, how can this improve? Oh, can we fix this? Like this is built into part of our DNA that we're able to keep those things moving. And so those are so important in today's society, and our tools, and I think from our students to our practitioners, that they know they have these foundations is so important for them, because they're great tools for them to be able to market themselves and be able to be successful in what they are doing, and maybe taking that knowledge and applying it, I think, on a business and organizational level, and connecting it.
Thank you.
And I leap in here just to say that it seems really linked to what you've said to a question that's come in from the live stream, which is whether you think that your research could influence government policy with regards to climate change. So it seems quite fun, the idea that you could use these systems actually to influence the people who are the most influential potential change makers, you know, government. Does that seem like I'm
hoping it's about the critical thinking process, right? It's about thinking and how they need to think and implement. I mean, here in the United States, our first COVID implementation of just messaging coming out was a disaster. And the way it was managed, I'm like, I was dumbfounded, and I'm like, who's putting the strategy out? Are they even thinking of like what? There's no thought process of like the stuff that's coming out of their mouth, of what's going on. So I think, yes, it can be used on, I think, multiple levels. I think policy is so important within these aspects of change, and I think it's looking and understanding in simple terms of seeing, I think, what innovation is, seeing what the issues are and understanding things on a holistic level, and then being able to say, well, here's the issue, like let's try to see if we do this here, how can we, is that going to affect change? Well, if this is not it, how is it all connected? And I really hope, I mean, again, I'm going to go back to Birmingham, because that's where my primary research began. And I spoke with leaders within the industry and within government to see where Birmingham was comparative to where, you know, my research was US based. And there is a Department of Behavior Change in the Birmingham City Council. And my first case study was the New York City's Department of Ed, and looking at cultural shifts for their 1800 schools. And I spoke to Lorraine Cookinson, which is an amazing woman, and she headed the sustainable schools for Birmingham City University. Birmingham City, so public school system. And the first thing she said to me was, behavior change alone is all we need. I don't even have to do anything else. If I could just change their behavior and their thinking process of what is important, that's all I need to do. Like, the other initiatives will get done. But if you can do that alone and that was a gold mine for me, because that solidified my initial thought process. I'm like, all right, well, how do we do it? And so that's where I started hoping to look and see what frameworks would help that thinking process.
We've got a few more questions in the chat box. Just gonna get through them. Just a second. So we've got a comment from Anonymous: fantastic framework and research, very innovative, and now thank you. And then we've got another comment and a question from our colleague Don Park. Thank you, Maya. A great overview of your work. Could you talk a bit about the barriers to change you have encountered through your research and application of this framework?
Yeah, and so within the process, again, when you're as an action researcher, you can only do so much, and you need other people to do it. So one of the barriers is, even when you're applying this. So I've worked as a consultant, and I worked as an internal change agent within my case studies. The internal change agent was much easier for me to be able to affect change than a consultant level, because in a consultant level, I found I would inspire and be able, and you'd have people excited about change and the ability, but then leadership dropped the ball twice, and that caused more negativity. So you need to, when you are doing these kinds of changes, you need to show some form of process and moving forward, even if it's the littlest of engagement or solution within the solutions when you're trying to push these initiatives forward. But I found within my last one, again, it was more difficult because you need to maneuver with all of it. But I found if you connected all of those three things, all of my six, if you looked at my framework, it was much easier to move and inspire and have other people do it. Because within sustainability management, and I guess any change management, but within initiatives, but within sustainability management, you're usually a team of 2-3 people trying to influence from maybe 100 more, and you're influencing third-party people and influencing vendors and all these different kinds of stakeholders. So having them believe and having them take that ownership and having them be able to move. So all you need to do is manage those movements. And it's about collecting data to baseline what you're doing. It's about understanding what everybody else is doing. And are we within the transparency? Because you need to make sure that they're doing the right thing. You can't just greenwash it, or, so information needs to be done. So, and again, if once you have people believing it and you have design thinking and you try to show them what maybe what research is, and creating these agile and learning environments, it becomes much easier within that culture to be able to say, well, we want to do this. We need to be net zero by 2050. How are we going to do that? You know, we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by this much. How are we going to do that? And you bring collaborative teams from every level, and you create those champions that then believe in it, want to do it, and move forward to it. And I found within my last case study was a big challenge because there was no foundation. It was total siloed and no communication within any of that. They didn't even talk to each other. Nobody talked to each other. So utilizing my framework and creating that really helped move that organization forward on multi-levels.
Thank you. Thanks, Maya. I think we've got a few more questions coming in.
So,
comments.
What are the main challenges I envision for businesses within the commercial design sector? Within the design sector, is that from the architecture world? If it is within, I think, well, I'll just talk about overall design. I think the design sector needs to be more, for architecture and designers, they are the specifiers and they are the ones that are now need to start collecting all this data for like circular economies and what is the product. So you are the influencers to these manufacturers and what kind of chemicals they're using, what exactly is happening, can they recycle like their products that are being made? Is it plastic, or can you use different innovative products that if they end up in our oceans, they're not going to be toxic and kill our sea life, or are they not going to pollute third world countries in Asia that pollutes their water? Like all of these need to be considered for a product you are specifying. I think all of us need to start thinking of that supply chain and where it goes. Are we buying Nikes that are made in China by child labor? Like all of these things need to be considered as we are building our buildings with that we are creating. What kind of products are there innovative products? Can we, like here in the US, they're talking about timber. Mass timber is starting to be considered and used, and even as add-ons on buildings that can bring in more daylighting and other design products, other green building efficiencies to it. So like all of these things as designers, the design sector has so much influence from product design to actual like influencing manufacturers and not utilizing their products because of it. Using specifying cradle to cradle products. And there is like here, Living Futures has products that are now, I forgot the name of what they're called off the top of my head. But I mean, there are products that are healthier for from organic, even when for shopping. The more we are consumers, and if we give a voice to this subject matter, and if you are a leader in an organization, start seeing who we're buying from. Do they do the right thing? Are they treating their employees correctly? These are my standards, and I expect everybody else to have these standards as well. And, you know, I will work with you. If not, you know, you see that now in corporate America of where larger, again, like I said, these larger 100 and 500 organizations are asking these questions of the smaller ones. Like, what do you do? And they give, like, you have to answer these questionnaires as like, what is your corporate responsibility? And it's starting to trickle down. So if we build organizations that have this mindset already, it'll be easier for them to transition into this world, into like working with the larger ones, but also helping each other and understanding that this connectivity is so important. I'd welcome anybody who wants to talk more about the subject and collaborate.
Thanks so much, Maya. And there are more questions in the chat, and I'm really aware that we're running out of time, and you've obviously got people incredibly excited and interested. There's lots of congratulations coming in as well, both for the framework, but also on your successful Viva. So many congratulations there. I really want to just thank you for what's been a fascinating lunchtime seminar. I know that my colleagues are already saying they want to reach out with you and make further connections for projects we can do together in the future. So yeah, I just really appreciate your time. Want to thank you and congratulate you again. So there's a round of applause that I'm sure is from everybody. But yeah, many thanks for your talk. We really enjoyed that. And to let people know that they ultimately, if you're happy, we'll be able to see this talk as a recording posted on the Urban Cultures website. So if you want to come back to it, it should be there.